It's 1992. The Soviet Union just collapsed. A 16-year-old kid named Jan Koum and his mom flee their small town outside of Kiev for Mountain View, California. They live off disability benefits, food stamps, and her work as a babysitter and his job sweeping floors at a grocery store. And it's here where Jan gets obsessed with computers. He teaches himself how to code using books he borrowed from the library, and he gets good enough to land a job at Yahoo despite the fact he has no college degree. It's here that he learns to build products that scale. Now fast forward to 2009, Jan buys his first iPhone and he's scrolling through the App Store and starts to think to himself, what if there was a messaging app that actually valued privacy? Something he never had growing up under Soviet surveillance.
I grew up in a country where I remember my parents not being able to have a conversation on the phone. My mom would often say, this is not a phone conversation, I'll tell you in person. The walls had ears.
He partners with Brian Acton, a co-worker from his Yahoo days, and together they launch an app that's simple, ad-free, reliable, and works across platforms, and it's a hit. And 5 years later, Facebook acquires it for $19 billion, one of the largest acquisitions in history. And Jan signs the deal at the same welfare office where he and his mom once stood in line for food stamps. And the app, as you know, is called WhatsApp. And it's the perfect example of the 6 rules of insane growth that any company should follow if you want to make so much money that you start to question the meaning of life. And in this video, I'm breaking down all 6 rules and showing you how to deploy them in your business, whether you're a brokey beginner or a baller-ass billionaire. I'm Jason Fladlin, best-selling author of the book One to Many. I've done launches that have hit 9.8 million in 8 days and others that have crushed 57 million over 226 days. I've consulted with people like Alex Hormozy and with companies like Zoom. These days I work with a small group of 7, 8, and 9-figure companies, helping them get to the next level. And these 6 rules of insane growth are how you get to the next level. So if you're ready, let's go, baby. Number 1, master one thing. It's the early 2000s, Yahoo's king of the internet. Search, email, news, shopping, fantasy, sports, chat rooms, hell, they even have their own dating service. And you want another strategy? It's this: be everything to everyone. So every quarter, they're creating something new, and at every board meeting, there's another vertical that they're launching, and from the outside, this looks like unstoppable momentum, but on the inside, complete fucking chaos. Engineering teams stretched across dozens of products, none of the products best in class. They were a mile wide with just an inch deep. And their homepage tells you everything that you need to know. Now compare that to Google. Same era, same industry, completely different philosophy. Google spent its first 7 years doing absolutely nothing but perfecting search. So while Yahoo was sprinting in 10 different directions, Google was drilling in one. They mastered search so completely that it generated so much profit, so much talent and infrastructure that they then eventually could dominate everything else. I mean, look at their homepage from the same time compared to Yahoo's, and you can see the difference between a company that masters one thing versus a company that tries to do everything. And the result was Yahoo got sold to Verizon for parts, while Google became one of the most valuable companies in the entire world. Going deep on one thing wins. But Jason, you say, what about diversity? New offers, new markets, new ideas. Yeah, that feels productive, doesn't it? It can even surge short-term profits, but it will always cost you in the long run. Going deep on one thing is just better because it's the only way that you get so good at it that your name becomes synonymous with the solutions. I'll Google it, put a Band-Aid on it. That picture was photoshopped. When you focus on the one thing, you become the answer before someone even finishes describing the problem. But don't you eventually need to go beyond one thing? Yeah, usually you do. But here's the rule: dominate first, diversify later. Don't launch product number 2 before product number 1 is the undisputed best in its category. One exceptional thing will beat 5 pretty good solutions every day. I mean, just look at AI right now. OpenAI and Anthropic, they're like duking it out, trying to do coding agents, images, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, Lovable's over here like, bro, we just build websites. And without all the risk and insanity of OpenAI and Anthropic, Lovable became one of the fastest growing AI companies in history. If you came up with a one thing for a specific AI use case right now that you could own and dominate because of your singular focus, you could go from 0 to millions or tens of millions or hundreds of millions or more, and do so pretty damn fast. One thing means you do less. You just do it better. Number 2, compress time. Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. That thought, which is a verse from the Bhagavad Gita, popped into Oppenheimer's head right after watching the first successful atomic bomb test. It took 3 years to go from idea to bomb. That's twice as fast as it took Joe Rogan to write his last comedy special. Once you lock in on your one thing, your next move is to be exceptionally unreasonable with your timeline, because time is way more flexible than you think. The Wright brothers went from, hey, flight seems kind of cool, to the first powered, controlled airplane flight in 4 years. The Hoover Dam was built in under 5 years. The Empire State Building, built in 13 months. The more ambitious you make your goal, the faster you can actually get it done. Aim for the possible, you inspire no one, least of all yourself. Go for the impossible, you inspire others to join your cause. You attract talent, help, and connections in ways mundane goals with ordinary timelines never could. When you connect your one thing with an impossible timeline, you enlist the universe to co-conspire with its creation. Here's an example. Say you have a razor brand. You want to go from 0 to $1 billion and you want to do it in 5 years. How would you go about it? Well, you couldn't sell it the normal way, that's for sure, but could you create an ad so insane, so different, so off the wall that people couldn't help but to share it? And it turns out you could. And you could do it with a budget of just $1,500. At least that's what Dollar Shave Club did. They went from 0 to $1 billion in 5 years off of one ad. Surely that's a fluke though, right? Wrong. Around the same time, another razor company launches. This one also focused on one thing, specifically one blade with one razor and a killer pre-launch marketing strategy. Here's how it worked. They basically said, hey, listen, I'll give you a reward if you refer a friend to join during our pre-launch, and the more friends you refer, the more rewards you will get. So by launch day, they had over 100,000 people on an email list ready to buy. Most businesses don't get that many subscribers ever, and this company did it before they sold a single razor, and that's how Harry's went from 0 to $1 billion in 6 years. 2 different companies, one industry, selling a commodity. You can find 1,000 other businesses that have done the exact same thing, but 99% of businesses don't even believe it's possible to grow this big this fast. So guess what? They never even try. If you think something is solvable, you'll at least attempt to solve it. And when you know it's solvable because you have a stack of proof showing you exactly how it was done, then you can form a plan. And a plan properly set is halfway accomplished. And every real plan must have a deadline. So make it an unrealistic one, because even if you only hit half of it, you're still 10x further along than your competition. Listen, time is a crude measurement of progress. It's so overly simplistic because you can repeat the same year 20 freaking times and fool yourself into thinking you have 20 years of experience. If you take the time to really understand time, how it works, how fungible it is, how relative it can be, how much you can leverage it in non-obvious ways that elude your competitors, well, this is a study worth pursuing, because time is not money. Time is more important than money. Believe it, truly own it, and you'll time travel to bigger results sooner, especially when you use the next rule to insane growth, which is number 3, feed your subconscious. The chemist Dmitry Mendelov hasn't slept in 3 days. He's obsessed with one question: how do the 63 known chemical elements connect? Born in Siberia, one of 17 children, his father went blind and lost his job, and his mother kept the family alive working in a glass factory until it burned to the ground. But none of this stopped Mendeleev. For years, he ate and slept and he breathed chemistry, scribbling element after element on note cards, rearranging them, searching for some sort of pattern. Then after 3 straight days at his desk, he collapses. And in a dream, he sees a table where all the elements fall into place. And when he woke up, he immediately wrote all of them down, and his table becomes so precise, it could predict elements that haven't even been discovered yet. His conscious mind set up the conditions for the breakthrough, but it was his subconscious mind that provided the insight that allowed him to solve his problem while he slept. You can harness the same power, and it starts with awareness, knowing the difference between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. The conscious mind is the spotlight, the subconscious mind is everything outside of the spotlight. The conscious mind is willpower, the subconscious mind is conditioning. The conscious mind is thought, the subconscious mind is what causes the thought to occur. Ever wonder why certain thoughts just pop in your brain seemingly at random, especially negative thoughts? It's because your self-image, which is subconscious, causes those thoughts to occur. So if you want the best conscious experience of life, you must put influence into the subconscious. So how do you do this exactly? Well, you go at it when it's most suggestible, which is when the brain is in theta state. See, if we hooked you up to an EEG, we could measure your brain waves and we would see 5 different patterns. There's gamma, there's beta, there's alpha, there's theta, and there's delta. Gamma waves occur when you're in a flow state and kicking serious ass. Beta waves are where you're mostly at, normal waking consciousness. Alpha waves show up during light meditation or when you're winding down for the day, and delta waves are when you're in a deep, dreamless sleep. And then there's theta. This is the brainwave of daydreams, deep meditation, light sleep, and REM sleep. And the theta state is where creativity and intuition are accessed. The more you can get into the theta state, the more money you can make. What's an easy on-ramp to theta? It's this. Right before bed, just as you're about to drift off to sleep, here's where you're going to set 3 intentions. One of gratitude, one of release, and one of growth. For gratitude, I say, as I drift to sleep, I am grateful for the bed and pillows underneath me, the blanket that covers me, the walls around me, the ceiling above me, and my lover whose warmth is near me. And then there's the intention of release. I say, I am safe to let my worries melt away as I sleep and for any unmet tension or emotion to resolve itself. And then there's the intention of growth. As I sleep, feel free to come up with a solution for, and then insert a very specific problem that you're having. And maybe then, like Mendelov, you'll wake up with the answer. Now, does this work every single time? No, nothing works every single time, but the cost is 3 freaking sentences before bed, and it works more than you'd believe to get the results you want, especially when you Number 4, fall in love with the process. F. Scott Fitzgerald walks into a bookstore to buy a copy of his own novel, but none are on the shelves. 12 years prior, he'd published The Great Gatsby, and he was confident that this would be his true literary masterpiece, but it flopped. Barely sold 20,000 copies, and now boxes of his books sat unsold, gathering dust in some forgotten warehouse. The year that Fitzgerald died, The Great Gatsby earned him a meager $13.13 in royalties. He went to the grave thinking himself a failure and his work forgotten. But then, during World War II, the Council of Books in Wartime decided to distribute 155,000 copies of Gatsby to American troops, where it becomes a sleeper hit, read and reread and shared from one soldier to the next until 1 million soldiers had fallen in love with a book that the world had thrown away. Today, The Great Gatsby has sold over 30 million copies, including 500,000 in 2025 alone. Fitzgerald's problem? He was too attached to the outcome and not the process, so he never really wrote seriously after Gatsby and died feeling like a loser. This upsets me because The Great Gatsby is one of my favorite books of all times, and I know that if Fitzgerald had based his worth on the process of his writing and not its outcome, he would have written more books, and likely even better books than Gatsby, but we are robbed of his genius due to the lack of his commercial success. And you can fall victim to the same fate if you are not careful. You have little control over the outcome in the short term, but you have a ton of control over the process, and if you fall in love with the process, it will have the largest influence on your outcome. Because if F. Scott Fitzgerald could have kept writing, he would have won eventually in his own lifetime, guaranteed. So take your one thing, take your unreasonable timeline, program your subconscious to upgrade you to be the person who can do that one thing in that timeline, and then get so excited about going through the process that you can flow like water as you move towards the outcome. Water can go under, around, over, or through an obstacle. Water shifts and shapes and transforms as needed. It doesn't see difficulty and uncertainty, it just flows. The flow is in the process, not in the outcome. There has never been a result that's gotten me as high as the feeling of when I'm in my element, creating during the process of moving forward towards my one thing. Your one thing is your North Star, and your timeline is the force that multiplies your creativity. But the path you take will have zigs, zags, loop-de-loops, and all sorts of detours and dead ends. I guarantee you, how you think you'll get there will not even come close to how you end up getting there. But falling in love with the process will be your best bet to keep you going, even when you aren't sure of the direction. So how do you fall in love with the process then? First, find the activities that fill you up. There are thousands of ways to grow a company to $1 billion. Some do it with people, others do it with coding, and others do it through marketing. What day-to-day activities already call out to you? See, I love to teach and I love to speak in front of audiences. So most of my working life is spent getting ready to teach, teaching, and analyzing what I taught within a business model that can make me a billionaire. But if you hate public speaking and you loathe to teach and you wouldn't do it if it made you a trillionaire, then don't. Find a better path that calls to you. Second, celebrate and reinforce wins as much as possible. All wins, even the small wins. Number 5, get constant feedback. It's 1901. Wilbur Wright just dragged a broken glider across the sand at Kitty Hawk and told his brother not within 1,000 years would man ever fly. Their glider had produced only about a third of the lift that they had calculated, and it would have been easy then to quit. But instead, the brothers asked a different kind of question. What if the data everyone had been using was wrong? They decided to measure their own values instead for lift and for drag. And so they built their own tiny little wind tunnel in the back of their bicycle shop, and they tested nearly 200 different wing designs, changing one variable at a time. Every test gave them feedback. Every failure told them something new. They built a new glider based on all of these results, and it performed exactly as predicted. And 14 months later, humans could now fly because the Wright brothers chased their one thing 200 feedback cycles in a row. Left to your own devices, you are going to get off course. But if you haven't been taught to seek feedback correctly, I get why you don't seek feedback at all. So let me show you how to get some proper feedback. First, when looking for feedback, state your intention. Give them your one thing. You're not asking them to change your mind on the one thing, but you're asking for advice on how to best accomplish that one thing. So this puts the major focus on development, not on mistakes, making it easier for you to take in the feedback and also helping the person giving you the feedback to give you better feedback. Second, establish that you welcome critical feedback. You are open to hearing where you can improve, and you will not get defensive about whatever advice or insight that they offer up. Third, ask for awareness. Where are my blind spots? Invite them to point out specific instances where your actions, behaviors, and strategies are not in alignment with your one thing. Fourth, being told and hearing are two different things. When you are told something, it conjures images of mom and dad lecturing you. But when you choose to hear something, you are opening your subconscious up to the opportunity for more growth. Now, here's a cool hack for getting a ton of super valuable feedback for free from people who otherwise you'd have to pay. Don't ask for feedback, ask for advice. Feedback sounds like a chore. Advice is much more pleasant and inviting. What advice would you give me to move forward? Now, what do you do when the feedback is overly critical? Give yourself feedback on the feedback. Here's exactly what I mean. Say you wrote a book and got a really nasty review on Amazon, a 1 out of 5 stars. Now rate yourself. How well did you receive that feedback on a scale of 1 to 5? See, your goal is never to please everyone, but you can have a goal of handling a 1-star feedback in a 5-star way. When you bring awareness to your reactions in the form of rating yourself, this accountability will naturally lead to improvements. And in the case with feedback, it gives you more control over it, especially when you... Number 6, use the story override. Your brain doesn't respond to reality. It responds to the story you tell yourself. And when you give yourself a big ass goal with a super aggressive timeline, your brain has 2 options. 1, tell you a story about how it's impossible to achieve, or 2, tell you a story about how it's impossible to fail. Here's how the failure story sounds. This is too much. People like me don't pull this off. I've never done anything like this before. What if I fail? Shit story, because now every decision you make, every meeting you take, every obstacle you face will be filtered through that story. Now here's how the winning story sounds. I don't know how to do it yet, but I can figure it out. There's a right combinations of actions out there that I can take to get the results that I seek. 2 equal people with an equal goal can face the same challenge, and one can win and the other lose simply because of the story being told. In any domain, any arena, he who controls the story controls the outcome. Stanford psychologist Carol Dweck has spent decades proving this at scale. She has shown over and over again how changing your story you tell yourself about your own abilities fundamentally changes the outcome that you produce. So before you can achieve your unreasonable goal, you need an unreasonable story. The story always precedes the result. Just look at the 4-minute mile. Before Roger Bannister, the story was that a human would die if they tried to run a mile in 4 minutes. But Bannister said, there was no logic in my mind that if you can run a mile in 4:01, you can't run it in 3:59. I knew enough medicine and physiology to know it wasn't a physical barrier, but a psychological barrier. Which is why on May 6, 1954, Bannister made history by running the mile for the first time ever by a human in under 4 minutes. And once Bannister shattered the collective story, the floodgates opened, and 16 more runners beat Bannister's record in the next 3 years because the story had changed. Most people think they're the audience of their own story, reacting to whatever plays out on the screen. But you are not the audience. You are the writer. And the moment you pick up the pen and rewrite your script, the characters, the plot, the ending, everything then on screen starts to shift. So write the story you've been telling yourself. I want you to include every doubt, every but, every reason it won't work. Now read that story, then flip the page and write a new story. One where you figured it out already. One where the obstacles weren't dead ends, but they were plot points. Then read that story every morning for the next 30 days because your brain doesn't know the difference between a story that's true and the story you tell it enough times. So just tell yourself better stories.